Okay, good morning, everybody. Please, if you can, mute your things. And when you want to talk, of course, you can open your speakers, no problem.
Are you going to
But
sit?
in order not to disturb everybody. Okay. פרשת השבוע, ויהי בשלח. כן, ברוך השם, עם ישראל are getting out of Egypt. And the first question is, the Parsha is telling us, ויהי בשלח פרעה. When Pharaoh sent Am Israel out of Egypt, did Pharaoh send us out of Egypt? Of course not. God sent us out of Egypt. And this is the first lesson that we have to learn. Pharaoh, with all due respect, after all what was happening, he still thought that he's got anything to say, not realizing that he's just a tool in the hands of God, because he was so involved with himself and so believing. When you tell a lie a lot of times, again and again and again, at the end you start believing in the lie. And if it's on yourself, it's very easy to believe in things that you say on yourself. So Pharaoh was saying all the time, I am God, I am God, I am God, I am God, I am God. So he came to the conclusion that he's God. And he thought that he's got a fight with another God. There was no fight. There was nothing here. God, if he wants, he wipes him out in a second. But Pharaoh had this in his mind inside. He couldn't accept it, that there is one God, the only God, and there is nothing else. And he is just a puppet. That's what it is. But because of this thought, he did this unbelievable, stupid thing, chasing Am Israel into the ocean, into the sea, and we all know what happened then. In our Parsha, we have also Shirat Hayam, and we have Parashat Haman. By the way, they say this is Gula for Panosa, to say the Parasha of the Manna, Shtay Mikra ve'Echad Targum. It means that reading it twice from what's written, and then with the Targum of Onkelos once. That's a Sgula for Parnasa. Today, Yom Shlishi, Tuesday, Pa'amayim Kitov. And because of Parashat B'Shalach. So anybody who wants a lot of Parnasa, today is the day to say, Shtay Mikra ve'Echad Targum Parashat Haman. And if you go and Google it, you will find it written, organized. It's no problem. Anyway, our parsha is a parsha of belief, to increase our belief in God. And we see a few amazing things. One of the things is, as we said, Pharaoh, after all, thinks he still's got something to say. And we have this Pharaoh inside us. We sometimes really decide what's going to happen and what not. And the real truth is, we decide nothing. God, he is the one who is in charge. He is the one who does everything. But one of the puzzling thing in the Pasha, in the whole story, is how is it that Am Israel, and we see the Chamushim Yatzu, says Rashi, only one of 5. In other words, only 20% got out of Egypt, and all the others, unfortunately, stayed in Egypt or more. In other words, they died in the darkness plague. After all what they saw, how can it be? And then on top of this, we see, ויהי בשלח פרעה את העם ולא נחם אלוקים דרך ארץ פלישתים כי קרוב הוא. And God is taking Am Israel through, and not a straight way, he's going around in order for them not to get to the Palestine, to the land of the Palestinians. Why? Because it's close. Because they will see what's happening there, and maybe there will be a war, and they will decide to go back to Egypt, which is also very strange. Will they go back to Egypt? What if they got in Egypt? But this is exactly one of the interesting points in life, what we call the comfort zone. You can suffer, you can be in a bad situation, but you're used to it. And if somebody comes and tells you, come, I've got a better place for you, you will say, okay, I'll think about it. And I must say, I've been in this scenario, and if you talk with people and they say, oh, yes, I'll give you an answer tomorrow, in 2 days. And the answer, 90% of the cases is, let me stay where I am. that don't want to change. We are used to something, even if we're suffering, even if it's not good, we're going to go on suffering and going in the same thing. This is an unbelievable point that we have to fight it, because a lot of times in life we stand in front of questions of let's say things that might change our life for the better, for the best, and unfortunately we are scared to do this step. So we have to learn from our parsha. Learn. Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone.
Your comfort zone, Daddy.
Yes. So what is happening now? God is telling Am Israel going back. ויאסף אלוקים את העם דרך המדבר ינצאו וחמושים עלו בני ישראל מצרים, and they go, as we say, only 20% of it, which is unbelievable how it can be that after all the miracles and everything, still only 20% believe in God and go out. And by the way, if you want to know the truth, also those 20% were a problem, because when they come to the sea, and the sea is opening for them, there is a whole discussion in heaven. הללו עובדי עבודה זרה והללו עובדי עבודה רע. Those are idol worshippers and those are idol worshippers. Why do you save those and you kill those? What does it mean? Am Israel are idol worshippers? Yes. They were going into the ocean with the statue of Micha, with an idol, after all what was happening. And this is the 20% that getting out of Egypt? Unbelievable. What is the secret? What's happening here? And this is exactly one of our biggest problems in life. The influence of the society, the influence of the comfort zone, the influence of all those things that surround us. And it gets to a point that we very rarely can change things. That's why God doesn't want to go through this way, because the influence is still there. And we see it through the desert when they go. Every once in a while, they want to go back to Egypt. What's wrong with you? What, did you have such nice life in Egypt? Talking about
Why they want to get back to Germany?
Yes, yes. There's a lot that it happens all the time. You know, this is not a story, as we say. This is for us to learn how to behave today. It's a way of life. And if we talk about this, the Torah tells us in Shirat Hayam, ובני ישראל הלכו ביבשה בתוך הים, and the children of Israel went in on earth in the ocean, in the sea, והמים להם חומה מימינם ומשמאלם, and the water is a wall from the right and from the left. And why is it changed to water? Why is it not written the sea is a wall from right and from the side? Because it's telling us that they went into the sea. Because what is water? Water is Torah. We live in the middle of a storm, an ocean that is full with, you know that everybody who goes on the ocean, has to say Birkat HaGomel, because one of the most powerful powers of nature is the ocean, is the sea. And this is exactly one of the problems. From one side, we see the Egyptians are drowning in the ocean, and if you say in Hebrew, Tov'im, Bateva, Tov'im, Teva, they drown in nature. It's the same letters. From the other side, Am Israel walking in the middle of the ocean on a solid ground with a wall on both sides. And what is the wall? What gives us the power to walk safely in this stormy sea, in this life that surrounds us with high waves? Only the Torah.
Believe in Torah.
If we believe in the Torah, and this is our wall from the right and from the left, then we can walk on solid space and not drown in the oceans. But with all due respect, we still have to understand, how is it that after everything that's happening, still we have this influence? And talking about influence, my brother wrote a book a few years ago. It's called, I think, The Good, the Evil, and the Ugly
Ugly.
in the Internet. My brother is a professor to psychology, and he wrote this book. And in a minute, I will come back to him. But he wrote there a test that was made. They took seven guys, put them in a room, and showed them on a board lines. One short one, one longer, and one very long one. And on the other side, they showed another line that they had to adapt the line on the left to one of the lines in the right. Now, one of them was being tested. All the others were a part of the test. And of course, he was the last one to be asked which line on the left side suits the what line on the right side. They asked the first one, and he showed the longest line instead of the shortest line, because on the left side was a short line, and on the right side was a short one, a middle one, and a long one. And the first one said that the one on the left, the line which was short, is suitable to the long one, which is of course not true. The second one, the same. The third one, the same, and so on till they got to the seventh one. This was one who was tested, and they asked him, what line is suitable to the line in the right? And what do you think he said? He said the same thing that the 6 people before him said, which was wrong. But, he said to himself, thinking, if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 saying this is the line, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't see right. And in order to make it really test it like it's a real test, they took the same drawing and put 7 people that none of them knew about what's going on, and they asked them, and everybody answered the right answer. This is a real test, and it happens in life. You know what the truth is, but the influence of the people around you distort you, and you make a wrong decision because of others. Deeply inside, it's wrong, but you convince yourself, if everybody's saying it, it's the right thing. And it's like my wife sent me, maybe you saw it also, send me a nice presentation of what it was, let's say 50 years ago, and how do we look now. And one of the things was you see nice ladies dressed with long dresses, beautiful dress, and then from the other side, our time, you see nice ladies wearing torn trousers, which is the high fashion today. And you think to yourself, what a difference. How can it be? This is the world. They buy torn trousers, they pay for it more than normal trousers, and you know what's so stupid? Take normal trousers, then cut them at home. It will cost you less. But that's the craziness of the influence of the society. And this is what happened to Am Yisrael in Egypt. With all the problems, the influence was there. They were still inside, some of them, of course, not everybody, Baruch Hashem. They had this idol worshipping inside them. And this is what happens to us. And this is what we have to be aware of. Not to be influenced by others when we know the truth. And the only way to do it is walking with a wall of Torah on the right and on the left. And talking about the Torah and the good way of doing things, it reminds me an interesting story. A friend of mine, what's his name? Professor Mai, maybe you know him. Anyway, this guy, he lives in Ra'anana, as a very dear friend of mine. He wrote also a few books, and he told me a story, unbelievable. He says his brother, his son also lives in Ra'anana, and he's a doctor, and he's very, very busy. So when he comes home, he's very tired. He hardly sleeps. And he came to visit him one night, and he sees this guy, Rebbe, comes in, and they sit together, and they learn. But what learning was it? He says, this guy is teaching the Rebbe, and his son is sleeping. He was numbing, and he was sleeping. So when this rabbi went, he asked his son, tell me, what did you do here? Well, I don't understand. You were sleeping. What did you learn here? He says, Father, you don't understand. I wanted to give tzedakah to this guy. He's got a big family. He is poor. And I didn't know how to do it in a nice way. So what I said, you know what, you come to me once a week and you teach me, and I will pay you for the teaching. We learn Gemara, we learn whatever. And here I get two things. First of all, I pay him for a lesson and he feels good, and that's the best way of charity. There's not a better way than this, because he gets salary, not really charity. From the other side, I also have 1 hour of sleep. And I will never forget this story. You know, this is, when we think about others, and when we think how to do the things in the right way, when we walk in the way of the Torah, that's how it's supposed to look. Not, unfortunately, what we're seeing the last few days. And we have to understand, we have to be very careful to get to conclusions. Because what we see on television, on the media, what's happening with the Haredim, don't make any mistake. It's not all of them. It's not even the majority. It's a few people that make all this mess. And as I heard today, the Reb Chaim Kanievsky also got out and said very clearly against what's happening. But unfortunately, this Chilul Hashem happens all the time. And the big lesson is, it doesn't matter how you look from the outside. It doesn't matter what you do from the outside. It's what's inside. And this is one of the big lessons of our Parsha. And what is Pharaoh thinking to himself when he sees us in the middle of this, not knowing what to do? And it's a bad feeling, you know, to see what's going around you, and you puzzle, and sometimes you can lose your faith. No, it's a problem. And this is what happening when Am Yisrael, instead of going forwards, they're going backwards. God is telling, let them go back and park in front of the sea. And Am Yisrael, of course, are afraid what's going on. And Pharaoh, when he hears about it, he says, Nevuchim em ba'aretz. They muddled up. They don't know what they're doing. And this is the opportunity. I'm going to come. And this increases his belief that he's got something to do about it. He thinks, I can go there and do something. He doesn't realize that it's all a part of the big game. Anyway, he goes. And we know what's happened. But what is the meaning of not knowing? It keeps bringing me back. I read a beautiful story on Shabbos regarding the darkness plague, which is also, what is the darkness? The darkness is when we don't see what we're supposed to see, or we can't see what is the truth, and we see a different picture, or sometimes we don't see. Darkness was from one side for the Egyptian, from the other side it was a light for Am Yisrael, for Bnei Israel. Not all of them, those who had this belief in God. Anyway, everybody knows that in London, one of the big problems is fog. They have a lot of fog there. And sometimes the fog is so thick that you cannot see 1 meter in front of you, even sometimes a few centimeters. Years ago, my brother landed in Oxford in England, and he took us from London to Oxford with his car, and it was such a heavy fog. I didn't understand how he drove, because you couldn't see anything. And this brings me to an unbelievable story. In one of those days, and it was evening, getting dark, and this father is standing on a corner of the streets in London. He is on his way to the hospital to visit his kid that is ill and waiting for him, suffering there. And unfortunately, the fog comes, and the fog is so thick that the torch he's got in his hand doesn't light anything. He doesn't see anything. He's really so desperate. There is nobody there. Darkness is all around him. He sees nothing. He doesn't know what to do, how to behave. And he starts crying because his son, his child is waiting in hospital for him to hold his hand, for him to help him and comfort him and be near him. And he cannot get there. He cannot see anything. He doesn't know the way, cannot see anything. It's so dark. The torch doesn't help. And he cries. He's desperate. Suddenly he hears a voice. What's the problem? What happened? And he doesn't care about it. He says, I have to go to hospital. I don't know what to do. I cannot see anything. The voice tells him, don't worry. I know the way. I'll take you there. And they walk and walk. He says, here is a pavement. Here is a step. Be careful. We're taking right. Here we're taking left. And then he hears a noise and he says, you see this door? That's the door to the hospital. You can go in. He doesn't know how to thank this guy. So thank you very much. But I have to ask you a question. I cannot see anything. How did you find your way in this darkness? He says, for me, darkness is no problem. I am blind. And you know, this is unbelievable. To understand, first of all, how privileged we are to see. And what is for somebody defect is for the other a good thing. How a minus can be plus. And the way to look at life. And there is a big lesson because sometimes we think that we see what we don't see. But sometimes there are certain things that we can do. And what can take us, even as a blind on the right way, is if we go as blinds in the way of the Torah. When we understand and realize, Ubnei Israel, the children of Israel, they went by Yabasha betoch hayam. They went on solid earth in the middle of the sea. And the water, which is the Torah, was the wall from right on from left. The guidance of the Torah. It's the only thing that can lead us in the right way with all what's happening around us. And getting us out of nevuchimem, of this muddled up, not knowing what to do, we have just to listen to God, go in the way of the Torah. And this is our parsha. They tell us that on the sea, Shirat Hayam, is so important Shirat Hayam that we put it every morning in the tefillah. What is Shirat Hayam all about? We are talking about getting out of Egypt. But you see, if you look at Shirat Hayam, backwards and forwards, you would not find one word on Yetziat Mitzrayim. One word you wouldn't find. Not on the 10 plagues, not on the miracles, and not at the fact that they got out of Egypt. Unbelievable. The only thing that we sing in Shirat Hayam is about what happened on the Yam, on the sea. Why? And the Midrash tells us, they saw Ze Eli v'anveu. Say, a slave girl saw what the prophets didn't see. In other words, she had a revelation. She saw God. She saw things that they say even the prophet Yechezkel ben Buzi, which was talking about the carriage of Kabbalah, of high things. She saw what he couldn't see. Unbelievable. That was Shirat Hayam. But there is a big lesson here. What happened to the slave girl 2 minutes later? Was she a prophet? Did she become a tzaddik? No. She stayed a slave girl. And why did she stay a slave girl? You know why? Because it's like the story with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva went to learn at the age of 40. Nothing could go into his head. It was very hard. So he was desperate. So he go to the field, and then he saw a rock with a hole in the rock and water dripping on the rock. Those are the drops that made this hole in the rock. He says, wow, you can stand there for hours. You wouldn't see what the drops are doing, but they're definitely doing something. And from this he learned that if a stone can get a hold from the water. So of course, he, as a human being, can get the Torah into his head. But there is another lesson here. If we'll ask a question, if all that water that made this hole, we get on the stone in one go, or this rock, like you will pour it in one go, all those gallons and whatever of water in one go on the stone, what will happen to the stone? Would it be a hole there? No, nothing. In other words, if you have a revelation, if you see something that is too big for you, so okay, you had for 1 minute a lightning, but then it's gone. Because in order to get elevated, in order to get to a higher stage, doesn't happen in one go. It has to be drop by drop, step by step. And this is Shirat Hayam, to teach us that we are on the way. And as long as we're on the way and we go on the way of Torah, God is there. It's like this guy who had factories all over the world. He was a very rich guy, and he had property and business all over the world. And he had one son, a spoiled son, and he didn't know what to do with this spoiled son. You know, the time will come, he wants to give the business to the spoiled son, but the way is, he's going to lose the business. And we see it in life a lot of times, that sometimes second generation goes into the business and the business is finished. So he decided he's going to send this son far away to one of the factories he had, and he will start as a simple worker at this factory and will climb up. The son didn't like it so much, but didn't have any option. And so it was done. And the son went to this place, and years went by, and he forgot that he is the son of the owner of the whole thing. And unfortunately, the boss in that factory also forgot that he has, as a worker, the son of the balabus, the son of the owner of everything. And he started treating him very badly. In the beginning, the son was thinking maybe it's a part of the procedure. But then he realized it's getting, really, he's torturing him. So he phoned his father, "Father, what's happening?" Well, this is your intention. He says, "What?" Took the first plane, got there, and fired this boss, and took his son out and put him in a different factory, in a higher stage, and a higher level of work. And the son was so happy. Why was he happy? Why was he so happy? Because did he get the empire yet? No, but he knew that he is on the right way. How did he know? Because he knew that his father is with him all the time. And even though it's not the end of the way, he knows if things are going to get bad, so they will eventually lead only to the better. And if they are so bad, Father is there to help me. And this is the realization that Am Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, got on the sea. When they saw this big miracle and they saw everything that happened, they understand and realized that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what it is, they are on the right way. No, Shirat Hayam was not the end. We are still waiting for the end, for the Geula, for the last days of this situation to get to the Mashiach times and to the Geula b'mera b'yameinu amen. But we are, through Shirat Hayam, getting the power to understand and realize that God is with us all the time. And that's the main thing of Shirat Hayam, to make us understand and realize that though we are not yet in the Geula, we're on the right way. When are we on the right way? When we go on the way of the Torah, when the water of the Torah are our wall from the right and from the left, then we are on solid way to the Geula. And God is there checking everything that is okay. And Bezrat Hashem, if we will do it in the right way, if we will understand and believe that yes, there are powers, there is a small pharaoh inside us, there is an influence of the environment, of the society, but we're going to fight it. We are going to get out of Egypt. We are going to get out of Egypt and go on the right way in the middle of all what's happening around us. And one of the main things is be aware to the others, not only to yourself. Like this interesting story with the son of my friend that was giving tzedakah in the best way you can. Good day. Have a nice day, all of you. Thank you very much.